without further ado, everybody please welcome Norman Kerechuck.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank Max for inviting me, and you know, the topic is going to be based on what we're going through right now with the COVID-19. And I just took a look back and looked at some other eras that were, you know, hard times. Basically, the theme of my presentation is designed for hard times. So yeah, we're in an unusual circumstance right now, and Max invited me to speak basically about this kind of subject, about what we're all going through right now, and how design can impact it, and in the past how it has impacted these different eras of hard times. So I'll give you a little bit about my background. Max has already mentioned that I went to Art Center, and I'm president of GK Design. We're actually in Garden Grove now. We were in Lakewood for a lot of years, just north of you guys. We specialize in power sports design. Our main client is Yamaha Motor, so we do a lot of motorcycle, ATV, snowmobile, jet boat, you know, these kind of products. And yeah, so you know, Max mentioned how long I've been in the design business, and I just was reminded of this by a video that recently popped up on YouTube, which was the commercial for the twin turbo Nissan. It was a Super Bowl commercial, and they used one of our bikes called the Rad bike. It was a concept bike we built, and I'm trying to think of his name. Who did Aliens? Who's the director of that? You guys know?
Geiger did the design for it, but it was Cameron, wasn't it? James Cameron?
No, it was somebody else. I can't think. Famous designer. Okay. So anyway, famous director. He produced the commercial for Nissan, and they used our motorcycle in it, and it was from 1990. So it was 30 years ago. It's hard to believe it was that long ago, but it just seems like it was 5 years ago or so. Time flies in the design profession, I guess. So with that, I'm gonna try to jump into my presentation.
Really quick, we did get an answer. It's Ridley Scott was
Ridley
Alien,
Scott.
and James Cameron was Aliens.
Yes, it was Ridley Scott. He directed the commercial, and it got a lot of flack for being kind of glorifying, you know, dangerous driving. But if you look at that commercial compared to the commercials of today, it's really tame compared to what they're doing in commercials now, especially Dodge. You know, Dodge is doing donuts and stuff and ridiculous. But so anyhow, let me jump to my presentation, and you know, I guess we'll have a question and answer at the end of it all. So yeah, this is a little bit about it's a little bit about history and what America has gone through. So does anybody know what famous event happened in 1929? No, nobody, anybody?
Crash of the market.
Yes.
The Great Depression.
Yes, we had a huge crash in the stock market. And this crash began the move into the Depression. So, you know, what happened was, the stock market was really hot in the 1920s. A lot of people were getting rich, and so it was a wild time, and people were speculating like crazy. People were taking out bank loans to buy stock and everything. So the market was way overvalued, and suddenly it all just came to an end. It was like the bubble burst. And when that happened, people lost everything and went into heavy debt. So it was a really dark time in America. So as you can see, we had huge unemployment problem in the cities, sudden loss of fortunes, and you know, businesses were going under left and right. People were being laid off. You know, the cities were just overrun with unemployment. And you know, it was like a double whammy. And at the same time, Europe was buying a lot of our farm produce, and and the prices were high, and these farmers were buying more and more land to develop and to farm. And then suddenly, around the same time that the stock market crashed, there was a drought, and it started and it went on for years. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the term of the Dust Bowl, but what happened in the whole Midwest was they didn't get any rain, and all these fields just dried out. And then these strong winds came and just blew dust up into the air, and it traveled for miles. And you can see the house on the bottom right, it just got buried like it was in a sand dune. So all these people just lost their farms. They had mortgages on all this property, couldn't pay them because they weren't able to make money, and they all lost everything. And so they decided to they all decided to move west to try to find a new life. And yeah, everything was going wrong for America in the early 1930s. So with all the misery people were suddenly facing, this concept of escaping into the future became popular. Okay, hang on one second. Let me just, there we go. Okay, and so what happened was movie theaters became this inexpensive way to escape the reality of their lives. And the movie theaters were smart enough to know that the styling and the whole experience of going to the movies, and they understood that people wanted to forget their problems and come into a different world. So they started making these extravagant movie theaters on the outside and on the inside. And you can see where Walt Disney and Las Vegas and all these other places got their inspiration, because these guys were really far ahead of their time, and they were providing this experience like nobody had ever seen before. So you'll see some of these things like this interior on the bottom right here. It's just a fantastic design. I don't think I've ever been into a theater that had a circular opening for their screen. But yeah, the outside also on the top right looks just like a spaceship or something. It's impressive. And this stuff was built in the 1930s. It's hard to imagine how impressive that was, going from stepping out of your Model A and coming into something that looks like this. Uh-oh. Oh, there it goes. Got jammed there for a second. So I call this the future of promise. And what happened was the architectural, industrial design, and all these different types of builders and creators started to build this fantastic new style, and it was later on termed the streamlined style. So you can see these buildings. Actually, the one on the bottom right, the Pan Pacific, that was here in Southern California just until the 80s, actually, and I believe it burned down. But yeah, they just built these fantastic buildings, and it was the trend of the time. So industrial design, everybody in design, we're building these this new style of streamline. And basically what it was is it became an icon for moving into the future. And the future was felt like it was a place where things happened quickly and everything operated smoothly, compared to what they were going through with waiting in bread lines and soup kitchens and things. And so their lives were kind of miserable from all the delays and inconveniences of their lives. So everybody was definitely dreaming about going into the future, and anything that resembled something of the future became popular, and these kind of designs popped up. So you can see toys, office supplies or office, pencil sharpeners and things like this, cars and trains and buildings, as I showed earlier, all began to take on this futuristic image. So the 1930s was a time where, it was an all-out display of America's optimism for the future. And, I just think it's one of the, the greatest times of American design was the streamline era. So 1939, this is 10 years later, we're still in the Depression. And what happens is we're not the only ones in the Depression. Europe is also. And they had a lot of dissatisfaction with their economy as well. And then they started to have a lot of dissatisfaction with their government. And you can see on the bottom left, people were trying to get money out of their banks. Their banks were also shutting down because they didn't have cash to give out. And, the whole system was basically falling apart. So all these people on the right are waiting in line for the bank to open so they can come in and get some money. And you can see people were unhappy. They broke the windows of the bank on the bottom left. And then you had propaganda posters on the top right there, which showing people's dissatisfaction. And there's a revolution brewing at that point. And so what happens is going through all that dissatisfaction with their government, it turned into anger. And pretty soon we had a socialist party take over in Germany. And, began World War II. So America pretty much stayed out of the war right up until Pearl Harbor. So after 1941, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, patriotism grew high, and thousands of people enlisted in the service. Thousands of men, I should say, enlisted in the service. And so the biggest industrial ramp up in history starts. America just changes gears and goes into this full-on wartime production. And this is basically what ended the Depression. Everybody who wanted a job can get a job building arms for World War II. And a lot of you probably know about Rosie the Riveter. So, women, so most men had joined the service, and a lot of women took over factory jobs, and you can see them building Jeeps on the top and airplanes on the bottom there. And it was just a time of huge patriotism and everybody pitching in to help win the war. So during this time, these people had just come out of the Depression, and a new kind of shortage begins for them. So the rationing of resources, so food and gasoline, tires, even paper, all these things were rationed. You had to get these cards that allowed you to purchase gasoline, and you could only have so much gasoline in a week, and you can only buy so much food during the week as well. So it's a pretty extreme time, and people were really willing to sacrifice for their country at this time. So you can see just about everything that was happening in America. Any purchase you made was affected by the war. So at this point in the early 40s, people were purchasing very modestly designed products and fashions, and consumers became very conservative and practical. And it was all based on patriotism. Passenger car production ended in late 41. I guess in 1942 it actually ended, and it resumed in 45. But there were no cars built, in America during this time. And you can see after the war was over, they went right back to producing the same vehicles that they had been producing right before the war, right before we got into the war. So the 1941 model and the 1946 model are basically identical. I think they have different taillights and a little different trim on them, but overall it's, you know, the exact same car. So this is one of the outcomes of World War II in the design world. So functional design was very popular. Of course, the invention of the Jeep for the war. And it's, you know, there's nothing glamorous about that. That is about as hardcore functional as you can get. I mean, every inch of that vehicle is made for a purpose. And on the bottom, they called it utility clothing. So, you know, the styles weren't flashy until after the war, actually. After 45, 46, everything changed. But during the war years, it was very conservative and the colors were very dark, and it was a very somber time in America. So now we jump to 2020 and our current situation. So back in March, we began what was to be a 2-week lockdown. You can see on the little poster down there where it says we are closed until further notice, it says anticipated reopen date 4/14, April 14th. That's when everybody thought this would all be over. But now it's 7 months later, and it's and this image shows the freeways. I think that's the 110 and the 5, I think it is. You can see how empty they are, and I think a lot of you probably experienced driving on these empty freeways during the lockdown. But yeah, so we're still in this problem with the COVID. As you know, I'm not in the studio with you guys sharing this presentation. So anxiety from contracting the virus has a lot of Americans isolating with their families. And right when the lockdown began, a lot of people panicked, and you can see there were big kind of basically runs on purchasing goods such as toilet paper and hand sanitizer and these kind of things. And I remember going into stores right after, like a couple weeks after this, and seeing these bare shelves. And I actually took pictures of them. That's not one of my pictures on the bottom left, though. I just got that on the internet. But yeah, it was a pretty impressive thing to see how empty all these stores became. So adapting to a new life, staying home where it's safe. So so people and their families stayed home, and they decided they were going to start entertaining themselves by video games and watching movies and TV. The Disney channel came out at this point. The Disney, it's not a channel, but it's anyway, it's their own network. And people stayed home, watched cooking shows, did their own cooking. I saw where there was a stat on Amazon that said the number one product with the highest percentage of sales gain was a bread maker, home bread maker. It had a 700% jump from in the first week of the pandemic shutdown. So you can see from these kind of things that what people are doing, what they're purchasing, how they're living, and the things they're not doing, like amusement parks were all shut down. As you know, Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm were still closed. Movie theaters were closed. I think they're opening now, but at a time too, you couldn't go to a restaurant. You had to get food to go only, and that's changing a little bit now. So the virtual world is basically what we're on now. So people, luckily, we had this infrastructure that allowed us to do this. This was already all in place. So, Zoom became really popular just right when this happened. And it enabled people to connect to the outside, to school, to work. shopping, entertainment. You can see on the bottom right there, you can visit all these different places in Philadelphia, like their zoo and Franklin Institute and some other notable tourist areas. So, you know, this kind of virtual world is really become part of our everyday lives now. So after a period of being stuck at home, people really started to get anxious and wanted to get outside and do something and spend some time with their family outdoors. And so what's happening now is camping, hiking, and outdoor activities have become really popular. I mean, bicycles were selling out. I know a lot of our power products from Yamaha, like boats and side-by-sides and motorcycles, were just selling at incredible amounts. So we can see what's happening. Oh, RV sales and like REI tents and all these things are just like, you know, selling out the doors right now because people are looking for some new activity to do and they want to get out of their houses. So there's a photo on the bottom left there. That's Joshua Tree. And it was overrun by so many people visiting that they had to close the park. And I think you can go in, but I think you can only hike in. You know, you can't drive a vehicle in Joshua Tree anymore. So some of the trends of the coronavirus. So these are the two big things I'm seeing, and I'm pretty sure you guys can all agree is isolation, remote learning and working. So people are working from home. That's including me and everybody in my office as well. And remote learning, just like you guys are doing. So this is a huge trend. And then the escape trend, experiencing nature with your family, going on family road trips. And, you know, these two main trends, I think, will be around for a while now. So this is a little comparison of events, and so on the left, the column on the left is event and mentality, and the column on the right is kind of what design did. So in 29 and to 39 was the Depression, and the mentality was to escape daily life. And on the right, you can see industrial design answered the call with this kind of dreamy, futuristic, streamlined design trend. And in 41 to 45, World War II, patriotism, you know, the mentality was help the country win the war. Industrial design basically was a functional design was the key part of helping America win the war. So at the bottom, though, you'll see, I know we're early into the pandemic, the 2020 pandemic here, but the mentality is isolation and escape. But on the right, I couldn't, because it's so early, I couldn't find any example of what industrial design has done so far for the pandemic. It's the IT community that has really basically saved the day. They are specializing in system-oriented design, which is making Zoom and these other connecting type programs work smoothly, and the delivery services like Uber and you know, and there's so many now that can deliver food to you, and of course Amazon is you can get just about anything delivered to your house now through Amazon. So I expect in the near future industrial design to contribute to these types of system type designs. And I know there's already a lot of study and a lot of progress to, what are they, you know, driverless vehicles, autonomous vehicles to deliver food and to deliver packages and things like that. So that's a trend that was happening before, but I think it's going to become more important now. And you know, this kind of support to the IT community is going to be the function of industrial design for the next few years. So the new normal. So we're all getting used to this. I think a lot of people are getting used to their routines now, where you're staying home a lot, you're not seeing your friends, and you're doing a lot of online shopping. You're doing a lot of maybe you purchase food and you go pick it up at stores or restaurants, or now you're able to eat there a little bit. But our society has made a change now. So just as after 9/11, travel had a huge change, where you had to, for a long time, you had to take off your shoes, and they x-rayed you, and all these things happened. And the terrorism threat has gone down a lot, but none of those rules have reverted back. So you can probably expect a lot of the coronavirus rules are going to be here for a while. So as designers, we should recognize the shift in people's mentalities, and what that means to how they perceive products, how they what things they value. So what I want to know from you guys in our discussion is, what do you think we need to do now as industrial design? What is the response of designers to COVID? So with that, that's the end of my presentation, and I'd like to have a little discussion with you guys. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Norman. I actually had a couple of questions on that. Do you see an opportunity in how like healthcare and sanitation, where around the like when we had the plague at one point, that then became the introduction of clean water systems.
Sure.
Whereas now we're looking at a much more personal level of how to maintain cleanliness or that sort of thing. There's a lot of countries, particularly in Asia, that have dealt with this more as an ongoing part of their culture, whereas we're doing this very ad hoc. Where do you think designers will kind of find a role in how that evolves?
So I had a little bit of this discussion with some of my coworkers recently, and we think there's the two trends, which is, one is the escape trend and one is the isolation trend. So the escape trend is going to be based on entertainment. It's going to be based on excitement, these kind of things. And the isolation trend it sounds like something you're talking about right now, Max, which is how to protect yourself. People are staying home more. People are investing more in their houses to make them more comfortable. People are buying, big home entertainment systems and things like this. And these two trends, I think, are gonna be the keys to the future of industrial design. How we design things to fit into the comfort of escaping this isolation, and then the safety of isolation. So as you mentioned, in the 1940s and 50s, there was a huge push to cleanliness. Like, hospitals were just getting to be sanitary places, believe it or not. And trends. You probably, a lot of you, I don't know how old all of you guys are, but a lot of you probably wonder why refrigerators were white, or your grandparents had a lot of white appliances in their homes. Well, white was seen as sanitary back in the 40s, and it was a symbol of health, and it was like it was started by hospitals, and everything was clean surfaces that you can wipe down and things, and all that translated into the consumer products. And there's just a lot of interesting things that are gonna happen out of this coronavirus.
Did you find when you were looking into the theater architecture of the 30s, were there kind of specific leaders within that architecture drive that kind of spearheaded that? Was it more from demand from theater owners? Was it architects? Or was this something that became more of like a builder style?
Um, that's a tough question. I don't really know the answer to that as far as specific names of which companies were the leaders of this. But it's just interesting to see this style is all over the place. I mean, it is in downtown Kansas. It is in Los Angeles. It's in Chicago, New York. I mean, it was a huge thing. So I'm not sure of who was the first one to do it. I mean, a lot of it did come from the European style, which was very clean at the time. Like the Bauhaus style was already a big thing in Europe, but in America, we kind of took that a little further and added a lot more like entertainment. If you see some of these old theaters at nighttime, they have light bulbs all over I mean, it's just like Las Vegas. You can see where Las Vegas completely got their influence because it was a really fantastic, fantastic place to go. I mean, and the rest of the town would probably be dark, and then you could probably see the movie theater from 3 blocks away just glowing. So yeah, just just the movie theaters and the movie houses and Hollywood was smart to make. They very much knew experience was important. Like we talk about user experience today, they knew about user experience back then, and they really did something about it.
Definitely. There was a lot of showmanship in how entertainment was presented as a activity at that time. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have a question. You mentioned a lot of outdoorsy products have been flying off the shelf, like boats and camping supplies. Mm-hmm. Has your company been designing anything new to put in the market that's been influenced by this yet?
No, because it takes 2 to 3 years for a product to go from a designer to production. It takes a few years. So we haven't been able to do anything. Of course, we're working on things that will be released later, but they're not scheduled for a couple years still. So,
it's like the response cycle in this end of the industry is not as adaptive.
Right. So, yeah. So IT, well, the IT community, they've been working on these kind of ideas for quite a long time, all the connectivity and, everybody's got a website, everybody's got, internet connections at their homes now. And so they were pretty much set up for this kind of situation. But as far as industrial design goes, it takes time to make a design. It takes time to make molds. It takes time to make production and investment. And things don't happen quickly in industrial design as we would hope they would.
That actually kind of dovetails nicely into our next question. In terms of vehicle design, mm-hmm. Do you see the effects of the pandemic long-term? Is it possible for kind of a shift in how certain designs are created? Have you seen anything or any like rumblings of how would we make it different? Obviously, autonomous is right. Already there, but how is that affecting design?
Yeah, so public transportation is going to have to figure out something pretty quickly here. So buses and trains. I just talked to a couple of guys in Japan. Because their whole Tokyo just gets around by train, and I asked them if there was any revolutionary ideas about handholds or seats or, are there any antibacterial filters they're using? But they didn't have a good answer for me. They said basically the ridership is so low that they're just practicing social distancing basically. But I can see in the in the coming future, the car companies having antibacterial steering wheels, maybe separate climate zones that people in the same vehicle can be protected from each other. I'm not sure how that's all going to work, but I'm sure this is going to be coming because. Like I mentioned in my presentation, just like 9/11 and the changes that happened after that, I think a lot of this COVID stuff is going to stick around for years to come. So
something I think may kind of lead into that is, are there designs that you think may emerge from the pandemic that will last for a long time? And I would kind of add to that maybe something that akin to what was futuristic from the streamline era, where it was intended to inspire rather than just respond.
Yeah.
Do you, from an inspirational standpoint, do you see what kind of drivers there might be in that sense?
Well, I don't think, there's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of misery with unemployment right now, but I don't think this pandemic has reached the level that the misery did in the Depression. The Depression went on for 10 years and we're only 6 months. We're not even a year into this. So I don't feel people have felt a really severe pain from this yet. So I can't see them needing to be inspired yet. But if this drags on for years and we don't, I shouldn't say that actually, because there has been a rise in suicides and things like this and mental health problems and drug and alcohol abuse. So there may be something that industrial design can do, or design in general can do for people's mental health, to take their minds off their problems. Just like you were saying, Max, the streamline era kind of gave them some hope. So maybe we'll have a similar thing happen. It's hard to say right now what's going to happen.
I thought what was interesting about what you were saying earlier was about the isolation part, about not just the negative side of isolation, but what can kind of come out of that is, doing more home activities, more home entertainment. And so potentially a value driver of home goods that before may have just been buy what's cheapest because you're not going to use it that often. Is that something you think where potentially where we as a country or a society place value in the things that we buy, maybe?
Yeah. Let me go back a little bit here. One good thing I think the pandemic has given us is that people are spending a lot more time with their families. I think the family unit is bonding now more than it had in the past 10, 15 years, or maybe longer, maybe since even the 50s. So that's an interesting development and something that you probably wouldn't have thought about happening, but I think it is happening because I've noticed a lot of people talking about these family road trips they're doing. That was really popular when I was a kid. People would jump in the station wagon with all their kids and they'd go to Yosemite or Yellowstone Park and such. And it seems like that whole experience is coming back. So as far as your question goes, Max, about valuing their purchases and using them inside their homes. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that because our lifestyle prior was a lot more of, if you bought something for your home, it may have been something
Oh, I see.
cheaper because you may not use it as often. So it didn't really matter if it broke
Oh,
or
okay.
that sort of thing. So the actual value to
Yeah.
yourself on your purchases.
Yeah. Yeah, possibly. If, like I was mentioning earlier, a lot of people are putting more money in remodeling their homes. I know backyard remodels are really popular right now because, people are enjoying their backyards again. And yeah, I could see people having value in higher quality items that they're going to be using a lot more. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like furniture and just appliances and things like that they get a lot more joy from because they're using them a lot more. So yeah, I could see a trend toward more high quality. So
Um,
you can go to like IKEA and get the IKEA premium.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
Where, there's still plenty of the options to get
sure.
kind of consumer throwaway stuff. But now that we're at home and having to deal with stuff that has to be thrown away more, um, maybe that opportunity for designers to invest in things that make living at home a little more easy.
Yeah, I noticed a friend of mine who's works for a trash collection company. He says, homes. So many people are staying home now that all the trash is just doubling. All their pickups are just doubling because so many people are eating, staying at home, and consuming things at home as opposed to before they would go to the office or they would go out to the movies or things like that. But now, that's an interesting development too of how much trash is being generated by homes that wasn't being before.
Yeah, I think there's even in my own building, we're noticing the dumpsters are now filling before trash day more
Yeah,
frequently.
yeah, yeah.
um, uh, can you maybe talk about some of the things that GK has done prior to the pandemic that either has been shifted or like I know you were doing the motorcycle body after market body
Oh,
kits,
yeah, yeah,
correct?
yeah.
So those types of projects, when people are looking to kind of, like you said, with RVs and things like that, where they're spending money on things that give them a bit of escapism, do you find those types of projects fit well with that? Are you looking at other things?
Well, our main our main products are entertainment based, and they're leisure vehicles. Nobody needs a motorcycle. Nobody needs an ATV or this sort of thing. So, our type of design is very much to inspire people to have fun and have the vehicle fun to look at and fun to operate and these sort of things. So we yeah, overall, we're very heavy into the having fun part of the equation here, the escape part. As far as the isolation, our company does a lot of, not just the one here in the United States, but our companies in Japan and Europe, they do a lot of product design. They do a lot of package design and such. So, um, you know, we weren't going to we weren't looking to make things for people being isolated like this. But I guess a lot of these products can be comforting to people that are staying home. I don't know what to tell you there, Max.
Yeah, no worries. Just trying to figure out if companies at kind of the larger consulting scale, um, what types of things that we've, turning ships quickly can be a challenge. And so, there are things that even some of our clients are looking at as, okay, well, this will eventually end. So we want to continue through and make sure we're solid in the end, but also identifying, similar to what you said with, practices that didn't end after 9/11, kind of lightened up, is that some of this is going to be with us. So how to respond to it in a thoughtful way rather than, okay, we're going to slap a sticker on it that says wash please, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, what I wanted to tell your class here, though, is one of the main takeaways from this I want you to have is whenever you're presenting or whenever you're designing something, understand the context of what the customer's mentality is. So if you were a designer in the 1930s, you should be aware of, people hurting and going through these, hard times. If you were a designer in the 1940s, I'm sure you'd be aware of the war, and you wouldn't be designing big metal products because, metal was rationed and people were, they were using all that materials for the war. So you wouldn't even think of making like a metal broom handle or something that would be negative to the effect of the war effort. So just as it is now, when you give a presentation, try to have what we call the general trend. So what we do at GK is every year we make this huge study of all these general trends about what kind of things people are doing, what kind of colors they like. We do a lot of research into what are the trends of vehicle design, of what color houses are, people are painting their color of their houses, all these things. And we try to formulate this large study to make some guesses to what is going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years. So you should also think that way, at least try to understand the customer's mentality. And when you have a job in the future, backing up your work with the big picture, large context of where this product is going to fit in the market and how customers are going to see it and feel about it. I mean, that's going to be really impressive to your employers to be able to show the reasoning step by step is, this is the customer's mentality. These are the things they value. Boom, boom, boom. And then this is why I designed this toaster or whatever it is, like this. And then you will have a job because that is valuable information to them. And like I said, we do this every year. We have an exhausting general trend research project. It goes on the whole year. It goes on the whole year, and it has some major presentations to the different divisions of our clients. But think about those big picture things when you design. For instance, Max gives you an assignment to design. I don't know, what kind of things do you give them to do? Like design, I don't know, like a toy, a kid's toy. You right away probably go online and research all the toys and, from different countries and this and that and different age groups and stuff. But, put it back it up to see what the big picture is, like what kind of toy is appropriate for this time, and what can what do the parents want to teach their kids, or what do they want to allow their kids to learn. So this kind of background information is super useful to justify your design. So that's my spiel right there.
Very good. Thank you, Norman. I actually had something to ask on that when you were mentioning that you have a group within GK that does this trend forecasting and they
Yes.
do it year round. Is this kind of like an ongoing like cyclical reach? So they're presenting a window at a certain point and that window is evolving. So there's this constant reach.
Yeah, these um, general trend reports, they have a start and a finish time because Yamaha needs to make some decisions as far as what color, what color paint are they going to buy, 600 barrels of in the next year, and they have a deadline because it takes time to manufacture that paint, test that paint, and such. So we have to make these kind of trend reports. They have to be done at a certain point because things have to happen, and decisions have to be made. So they go on for 6-7 months, and then we make a big presentation, and then a lot of decisions are based on that. And then after that, we start again for next year. And the way we do our research, it's no secret. We go to lots of industry shows. We go to races. We go to like SEMA show that's going on right now. We go to food shows. We go to furniture shows. I mean, we try to go to as many events as we can and see what's happening. We'll do a report on every one of those events, and all those reports will come together, and then we'll look at it, and we'll see the trend. This is what's happening. You can see it. It's here, here, and here, and then we just start studying it, and then figure out what's important. What do people want? And as like I mentioned earlier, as designers, you should always be looking at what's selling, what's not selling, why is it not selling, what are the reasons. A lot of it has to do with politics. A lot of it has to do with the economy. As you saw in my presentation, the economy is super important. It makes people feel good or bad. And when they feel good, they buy things and they do things. And when they feel bad, they stay home and don't do things. So just be aware of all these things and how they affect your design. So, yeah.
Did you just randomly, you mentioned that you go to different types of shows, not just motorsports shows.
Right.
Is there something that that kind of sticks out that you went to, like say maybe a food show or something random that happened to actually translate into, maybe not directly, but somewhat indirectly into a design?
Well, I can tell you something like that happened. This was years ago for me, because I really don't design a lot anymore. So we work on snowmobiles, as you know. So during a snowmobile trip, I'm from California, so what do I know about snow, right? It's snowing and such. But I took notice of these huge sculptures of ice that were melting, and they're so inspiring to me. The melting shapes are very smooth with very sharp edges, and I use that as the theme of a headlight on a snowmobile. It's still actually, they still make that headlight. It's in a different snowmobile now, but so that kind of inspiration from nature and sculpture came from looking at melting ice for me out in Yellowstone. So you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, we see things at furniture shows that different textures and different materials and the way what the trends are, and we definitely use those ideas and make seats or patterns in our graphics from these things, and it's the world's full of great inspiration. I mean, you can go down the street and find some nice ideas if you're looking at the right things and you understand what you're looking at. Of course, you know, number one is nature. Nature is the best inspiration you can have. The more time you spend outdoors and enjoying nature, you know, I think the better designer you're going to be. Just the coloring and the shapes are fantastic, you know, and it's all, you know, it's all based on survival, you know.
Yeah,
things
absolutely.
in nature have to survive. They're the perfect design because they can survive.
Yep.
So.
I have kind of one sort of follow-up non-related question, but more related to since you are now more in a position of design leadership, do you have any insights or thoughts for young designers coming into the design career at this point, as far as, you know, obviously it's very competitive, looking at whether it's portfolios or even just how to present, that sort of thing. You have any thoughts on that?
So, you know, now we're in the era of 3D data. We're in the era of Photoshop. We're in the era of Illustrator and all these kind of things. So, you know, I don't want to sound like the old guy here, but when I graduated school, everybody did marker sketching, and, you know, and you can tell who had the talent to design something. Now it's very difficult. So my advice to you is, you know, all the people that are going for the job that you're going for, they all have Photoshop. They all have, you know, they all have Rhino or whatever, the CATIA, whatever you're using. And you have to show some originality and some individuality in your work. So it's harder now because the drawing style isn't there anymore. But if I could tell you, showing hand sketches still means a lot to the people hiring, I think. I think showing some skills of you being able to make things with your hands, not just, you know, do a rapid prototype product, but showing some skill like that is always looked on favorably with in portfolios. So, you know, I'm not telling you to do every project by pencil and paper, but I'm saying have some of that in there. It really shows that you're not just stuck in a room with a computer. I don't know how else to say this, but like I mentioned earlier, if you have a lot of outdoor activities in your life, you know, include that stuff in your, you know, show who you are and show, you know, what your interests are. I mean, it really goes a long way. If, for instance, if somebody comes and they're looking for a job here, a job at GK, and they show me that they have a lot of genuine interest in, you know, wave runner design or jet boat design or motorcycle design, and I can see that they're an enthusiast, that really, you know, that really helps me believe in them. Like, this guy is going to love this job and he's going to stay a long time, because I don't want to train somebody and have them leave in 2 years. You know, you might think, you know, employers want to use you up or something, but they don't. The employers want you to stay there for your whole career. They invest a lot in you, and they want you to be into what you're designing. So I knew a guy, I don't know if you know him, he's a pretty famous guy. His name is Freeman Thomas. He was at Art Center a little ahead of me. And I saw his portfolio when he was about to graduate. And his whole point was to work for Porsche. Every project in his portfolio was a Porsche. If he had to design a clock, it was a Porsche clock. If he had to design a truck, it was a Porsche truck. You know, and he got a job with Porsche. You know, his portfolio was so overwhelming, enthusiastic for Porsche that they hired him. And I always remember that. That's just a That's just, I mean, that's a risky thing also, because if Porsche didn't hire him, he would really be having to do some, you know, some work. But they did hire him, and yeah, and he did. You know, his target was very well defined, and they believed in him. So find a job that you like, and your employer wants to keep you. And you know, I've been the same business for 30 years. So when I first started, I had a huge background in motorcycles, and I'm still here. And you know, we've got guys that have been in our office for 20 years. You know, lots of guys, 20, 25 years. So just find something that you're really excited about doing, and you'll never work a day in your life, as they say.
Thanks. We actually had a late question here coming in,
Sure.
asking if there's any way that you could show that headlight. Do you happen to have?
I don't, but it is on the Phaser 2 snowmobile. If you want to just Google it or something.
Okay, the Phaser 2.
Phaser 2, yeah.
Excellent. All right. If there's no more questions, Norman, I want to thank you for talking with us tonight, and look forward to when we can do this in person and go for a ride after.
I kind of miss, you know, having the questions come directly from the students. I mean, it's I know it'd be chaos if everybody's mic was open and you know, everybody was talking at the same time. So I understand your control there, Max. But yeah, it is kind of a, you know, it's a little different for me anyway. I like to talk directly with people. So,
well, when this is all in a different phase, shall we say?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of these students that'd be interested in having more of an in-person interconnection. So
yeah, and I really hope you guys all get back to the classroom, because there's something you don't get from being isolated like this, and that's the energy of be able to see what your fellow students are doing, talk to them about ideas you have, and you know, work together. It's super important, and you learn a lot from each other. I mean, when I went to school, I mean, of course the instructors were really good, but you really learn a lot just by talking to the seniors, or you know, seeing the portfolios of the people that are older than you and or more advanced than you or better than you, and you know, you just get inspiration and energy from each other, and I'm sorry to say it's not the same doing this on the video. So actually, hopefully this ends pretty soon. It's terrible.
Yeah. It was funny as yesterday I had a Zoom call with one of my coworkers, and we started an actual brainstorming session while we were on there, and we were actually sharing Illustrator screens back and forth and commenting on it, and it was probably one of the first projects like that in a while that it had gone beyond, okay, let's just note stuff down and talk about it, is that it actually went to almost like, you know, sitting next to somebody and them doing something on the screen and then you hopping in and doing it.
Yeah.
It kind of was a reminder that, yeah, we need to have that interaction, whether the interface is through you know, a digital screen or not, I think has been a challenge for a lot of this, but just the reminder that we need to have those activities going regardless is important, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know,
it's not the same.
Just when you're working as an industrial designer, you're not going to be working by yourself. I think I've mentioned this before in different lectures I've had there at Cal State. You're going to be working with engineers, you're going to be working with product planners, you're going to be working with color and graphics people, and there's going to be a lot of different people associated with you. So the better your skills are of, you know, talking to people and understanding each other, working as a team, the better the whole experience of your job is going to be. So you're kind of losing something right now by having to do this online. But I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe this is going to be the new skill set here, is going to be, how do you get your ideas across on a 2-inch picture of yourself on a screen. So we'll see.
I've actually just randomly been noticing that with one of my lower division courses, where some of those classes, getting students to present their work in class was a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, the presentation, like, they only have this format to share their work. So they're finding more techniques, and I'm actually finding some of the students are actually now much better communicators
I could see that
than they were. It's a different, I would not say I would say it's finding the silver lining rather than it's not a better reason to do this. But I think of all the things that are missing or a challenge, the ability for people to become better communicators because they have to. It's that survival thing that you were talking about in nature. Is I think our natural response to this has been either stay completely off of it or become adept.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much, Norman. Appreciate your time tonight, and look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Max, and thank you, everybody. I wish I could talk to all of you independently and hear your voices, but it's just too many, I guess. So here's hoping we all get back to our normal lives, and you guys get back into Cal State Long Beach there.
All right. Good night.
All right. Thank you.